Behind the Line, episode 17. I am your host, KC. Follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. I wanted to lead off today talking about Zion Williamson and the New Orleans Pelicans. The NBA season is upon us, tipped off Tuesday night. Pelicans, of course, had the TNT game because everyone in the country wanted to see Zion Williamson's first game. I'm a diehard Pelicans fan. Lived through the Chris Paul era, the Anthony Davis era, Dell Demps, who wasn't the greatest general manager, but I believe he gets a lot of blame he doesn't necessarily deserve. It wasn't his fault that the Pelicans medical staff was absolute garbage for most of his tenure. It wasn't his fault that when Tom Benson was alive, he treated his NBA franchise like second-class citizens. Gail Benson has come in and changed all of that. But anyway, as a Pelicans fan, I can't remember a time where I've been as excited entering an NBA season as I have been for this year. Yeah, I was excited for DeMarcus Cousins' second season. I thought him and Anthony Davis were going to be great together, and they were. I was excited at times during the Chris Paul era. But this was a different type of excitement. This is one of the best rosters that we've had in New Orleans in a long time. You've got a great mix of young star players and good veterans. And now my excitement level has dwindled a bit because Zion Williamson is out the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season after knee surgery. This is a real concern for me. If this were someone like Alonzo Ball, a J.J. Redick, Drew Holiday, I wouldn't be as concerned about it. I'm concerned because this could be the start of a recurring problem throughout Zion Williamson's career. I understand that this particular injury isn't so-called weight-related. And I also understand that Zion's weight has been a talking point since his college days at Duke. I was really hoping after he got with an NBA training staff, and New Orleans now has one of the best staffs in the NBA. I was hoping after that Zion Williamson would start cutting some weight. Start toning up a little bit, getting in better shape. It hasn't happened. It's a real problem in terms of not only the longevity of his career, but how much he's going to be able to play this season. The first thing to go on big men, your knees or your ankles. Pelicans GM David Griffin says that Zion is in elite condition, that his weight isn't a problem. I hate to disagree with him because he's done a great job his first 6 to 8 months in New Orleans. But in my opinion, that statement to me is asinine. Bottom line, Zion has got to cut some weight. Hearing a statement like that from David Griffin, it leads me to believe that the organization doesn't feel like his weight is even an issue, which is concerning in and of itself. If they aren't worried about it, then it's never going to get fixed. Realistically speaking, we've got 7 years to build a title contender around Zion Williamson. Because, let's just be perfectly honest, the odds of him staying in New Orleans after his first 2 NBA contracts that basically force him to stay there are slim to none. David Griffin's off to a good start. But saying that Zion's weight isn't a problem is a real concern for me going forward with the Pelicans. I thought the Pelicans looked decent against Toronto Tuesday night without Zion. That's a tough atmosphere for a relatively young team on opening night. Was surprised by one thing though. One thing really caught my attention in that game. I thought Lonzo Ball was playing well Tuesday night. He shot like shit, but that's to be expected. He had 5 rebounds, 5 assists. I believe he had about 8 points. However, I noticed something that I thought was strange late in the game. It was a close game throughout. They were swapping leads back and forth. And it was no different in the fourth quarter. The game actually ended up going into overtime. But in the third quarter, Lonzo Ball went to the bench, typical starter rest at the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter. He didn't re-enter the game the entire fourth quarter. Very, very strange. Your starting point guard on the bench the entire fourth quarter of a tight game on the road. First game of the season. He played a couple of minutes in overtime. I get that. But it really makes me wonder, does Alvin Gentry not have faith in Lonzo Ball already? First game of the season. This guy's not a rookie anymore. For your starting point guard to be on the bench the entire fourth quarter, you just don't see that in the NBA. Unless the head coach just has no faith in him whatsoever. Not in the opening game anyway. Just something that I thought was interesting that, going to monitor going forward. I saw an interesting article the other day on ESPN, and I wanted to talk about it for a second. Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota were both drafted in 2015. And both have seen their fair share of ups and downs throughout their NFL career. Really, more downs than ups. Fair or not, when quarterbacks are drafted together, they often get compared. I talked about this Tuesday with Mitchell Trubisky, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson. The whole premise of the article was talking about the crossroads both Jameis Winston and Mariota are currently at. Personally, I don't think Mariota's at a crossroads. He's finished in Tennessee. It's done. They added a bevy of offensive talent this offseason to give this guy a fair chance and for them to evaluate him. And he has failed. I'm not saying that his NFL career is over. But I think his days as a starting quarterback in the NFL are done. Chicago's reported to have interest in him, depending on the performance of Mitch Trubisky the rest of the season. I think that would be a monumental mistake by the Bears. You're just swapping out one bad quarterback for another. However, Jameis Winston, his story is a bit more interesting. He's 23-37 as a starter. Terrible record. But like Mariota, he's had a carousel of coaches, offensive coordinators throughout his career. Seems like Tennessee and Tampa are changing offensive coordinators every year. We just saw a 3 to 4 week stretch where Jameis Winston was basically unstoppable. The Rams couldn't stop him. Giants couldn't stop him. The Panthers couldn't stop him. Hell, Carolina's got a really good defense. Couldn't stop him at home. I completely understand benching Marcus Mariota in Tennessee. I actually predicted that would happen before the season. But if I'm Tampa Bay, I'm giving Jameis Winston a bit more leeway. For one, I think he's a much better quarterback. Does he have awful games where he makes you want to throw your remote through the television? Yes. But he has something that Marcus Mariota doesn't, and that's Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is a brilliant offensive coach. One of the better offensive minds in the NFL. He is great grooming quarterbacks. This guy turned Carson Palmer's career around. When he got injured, Arians went 5-3 the rest of that season with Drew fucking Stanton. Peyton Manning, Big Ben, Andrew Luck, all developed by Bruce Arians. A coaching resume can't get much better than that. I really believe that he is going to transform the career of Jameis Winston. I don't think this would have worked 4 or 5 years ago when Winston first entered the league, pairing him up with Bruce Arians. But I think he's to a point now that he realizes his career is on the line. And I also think he's a lot more mature now and much more open to direction than he was in his rookie year, second year in the league. I know some fans in Tampa Bay are ready to see Winston walk after that pitiful performance in London a couple of weeks ago. Give him and Bruce Arians some time. I say give him through next season. You can always franchise tag Jameis Winston at the end of this year when his contract comes up. But I really believe that Bruce Arians is going to make a star quarterback out of Jameis Winston. All right, college football picks coming up in a second. I wanted to talk about Drew Brees for a minute. I mentioned this briefly on Tuesday's podcast. Drew Brees is saying that he thinks he's ready to return this Sunday against Arizona. Sean Payton has been hesitant at this point to name a starter. However, when Brees was asked about it, he basically said if he told Payton that he was ready to play, he would be playing. Now, obviously, Drew Brees' word carries weight in the Saints locker room, in the city of New Orleans. Him and Sean Payton turned this franchise around. They really turned the entire city of New Orleans around after Hurricane Katrina. They've been together 14 years. If anyone knows Drew Brees, it's Sean Payton. That being said, I don't like this decision. This is one of those times, in my opinion, when a coach has to save his star quarterback from himself. I'm sure Drew Brees is chomping at the bit to get back into the game. Think about it. He's standing on the sidelines week after week, watching his team win without him. They're 5-0 since he's been out. Even though we all know that Teddy Bridgewater will never replace Drew Brees as long as he's healthy and playing. You know the thought crossed his mind that maybe this team doesn't need me to win. It's just human nature. I know that we need Brees. Coaches and players know that. Fans know that. But when you see your team succeeding without you, it's just human nature for doubt to creep in. Here's the thing. The Saints are 10-point favorites against Arizona. You've got the bye week coming up after that. For Brees' injury to be fully healed, it takes about 3 months. You're going to beat Arizona with Teddy Bridgewater. Their defense is bottom 5 in the league. They're going to have no trouble scoring points, especially at home. Jared Cook should be back. Alvin Kamara should be back. There's just no reason, to me, for Drew Brees to rush back at this point. Why risk injuring your hand again or something else when what the Saints really need is for you to close out the season and go into the playoffs healthy? Because the last couple of years, late into the season, into the playoffs, Drew Brees just has not been the same quarterback. I also heard something today that teams are interested in trading for Cam Newton. Another prophecy fulfilled from this podcast, Cam Newton's time in Carolina is over. I'm a bit perplexed, though, as to why anyone in this league would be interested in trading draft picks for Cam Newton. Why would you trade for a career subpar quarterback? Cam Newton had one good year, his MVP season. Since then, he's been god-awful. 6-8, 11-5, 6-8, 0-2 to start this year. This Carolina Panthers team has looked completely different with Cam Newton on the sideline. Completion percentage for his career is under 60. Wildly inaccurate. Since his rookie season in 2011, Cam Newton has had 5 losing seasons. 5 out of 8 seasons, he's a loser. Nagging injuries every year. He was hampered all last year with injuries. Played through it and hurt his team more than he helped them. So if I'm an NFL general manager, why would I trade away multiple draft picks for this guy? A guy who's known more for his wardrobe than his play on the field. Some bad team, I have no doubt in my mind, some bad team will make this trade. You know the teams. The bottom feeders of the league, looking for a big splash to sell tickets, sign the star veteran quarterback, put asses in the seats. Teams like the Cincinnati Bungles. And it won't be worth it in the end. Cam Newton was successful somewhat, as long as he can make plays with his legs. But he's older now. He's had a ton of injuries. Cam Newton's going to be 31 years old going into next season. He never learned how to become an efficient pocket passer. You remember RG3, Robert Griffin? Very similar to Cam Newton. Oh, he was phenomenal his rookie year. Oh, he's the next great quarterback. Crown him MVP. Rookie of the year. Haven't heard from him since. Cam Newton was on top of the world in 2015. Panthers went 15-1, went to the Super Bowl. He's never been the same. He never adjusted his game. Never learned to be a pocket passer. And now at 30 years old, he will soon be forgotten. All right, let's get to the college football plays for Saturday. Should be a pretty good weekend for college football. We got a couple of big games. Once again, Alabama is playing a team that they have no business playing. Arkansas. Another snooze fest of a game. If this bet were offered at a sports book, I'd lay down $1,000 that Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa is half empty by halftime. And Nick Saban will come out publicly and bash his own fan base for leaving the stadium early and refusing to watch another boring fucking Alabama game. All right, first game up. Auburn at LSU. Current line LSU minus 10.5. I've been riding LSU all year. I'm not going to stop now. Auburn's really talented defensively. This will be the best defense that Joe Burrow has faced all season. I think Auburn might give him some trouble early, but I don't feel like they'll be able to contain him for 4 quarters. The big thing for me in this game is the LSU run defense versus the Auburn running game. Auburn is primarily a running football team. 65% of their plays are running plays. They've got a young, inexperienced quarterback traveling to the most hostile environment in college football. Gus Malzahn will look to get the run game going early. However, LSU is stout defending against the run, allowing only 3 yards per carry. They're going to force Auburn quarterback Bo Nix to beat them. The last time that happened to Bo Nix, on the road against Florida, Auburn lost as a road favorite against a backup quarterback. I think Auburn will keep this close for a little while, but this LSU defense will force Bo Nix into making turnovers. LSU pulls away late, covers the double-digit number, taking LSU minus 10.5. All right, next up, Penn State at Michigan State. Current line, Penn State minus 5.5. After 2 really tough weeks for Penn State, they get a little bit of an easier game here, going on the road to Michigan State. I really like Penn State here. First, this is a really good road team. Won a tough game at Iowa a few weeks ago. 4-1 against the spread their last 5 games on the road in October. Penn State packs a good run game and defense, which is essential for winning and covering on the road. On the other side, Michigan State's completely fallen apart. Lost at home to Arizona State. Blown out by Ohio State and Wisconsin. The Spartans are averaging 5.7 points per game over that 3-game stretch. And they're going to be going up against the 3rd best defense in the country, with Penn State allowing only 10 points per game. This game to me has blowout written all over it. Michigan State's getting torched defensively. They're not scoring offensively. If this game were in Happy Valley, Penn State would be 14 to 20 point favorites. Going to swallow the points here, take Penn State on the road minus 5.5. All right, last game, Notre Dame at Michigan. Current line, Notre Dame minus 1. I haven't been really high on Michigan this year, especially on the road. But one thing this team does under Jim Harbaugh, they win at home. Look, Michigan almost upset Penn State last week. They fell down early, 21-0, but completely dominated that second half on the road. Outgained and outscored Penn State in the second half. Hell, they outgained Penn State the entire game, 417 to 283. Notre Dame hasn't impressed me the last few weeks, ever since that loss to Georgia. That loss at Georgia doesn't look as good now, with the Bulldogs losing to South Carolina at home and looking lackluster against Kentucky. Then, almost let a bad USC team come back and beat them at home, barely squeaking out a 30-27 win. To me, it almost feels like they know their playoff hopes are gone, and they're just not playing as well as they were earlier in the year. I feel like Michigan will win this game in the trenches. The Wolverines have a good pass rush and should be able to get after Notre Dame quarterback Ian Book. A night game at the Big House, and I'm getting a point. I'll take it, taking Michigan plus 1. All right, let's recap. As usual, betting heavy favorites in college football, taking LSU minus 10.5, Penn State minus 5.5, Michigan plus 1. Went 2-1 last week with our college football picks. It's been tough with these picks in college football this year. One game under 500 for the year, hitting about 49%. Not that great. Hopefully we can get above 500 this weekend. All right, that's all for today. I'll be back tomorrow morning with my NFL plays for Sunday. Hit the like and subscribe button. Leave a comment in the section below with your college football picks for Saturday. Follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. I will see you tomorrow morning.